Hi, I'm Jeff Farnwell, Director of the MBA program at Rockford College. About 18 months ago, the Rockford Chamber of Commerce set out to make networking easier in Rockford by identifying area people you should know in business. Currently, 41 people have been recognized and celebrated as one of these people. This series of talks held at Rockford College was designed to provide a vehicle for the public to hear from and learn about each of the people you should know. I hope you enjoy this talk.
President of Rockford College and a 2012 People You Should Know Award recipient. Under Dr. Head's leadership, Rockford College's undergraduate enrollment is at a 12-year high. The endowment has grown by nearly 20%, and capital improvements to roads, residence halls, classrooms, and technology have been accomplished. Dr. Head is involved in the community, serving on a number of boards, including the Swedish American Health System, the Golden Apple Foundation, and Kobe College Corporation. His talk today is titled Higher Education, an Industry in Transition. Please help me welcome Dr. Robert Head.
Thanks, Lauren, and thank you all for coming and welcome. The fact of the matter is I started my career in banking. I worked for nearly 20 years in banking, so I'm a reform banker. My last stint was with Northern Trust, and at that point in time I left, at least I feel like, I left the planet Earth and came to Mars, this thing called higher education. It is in transition, and I'm going to share some of the things that are going on with you today. In many ways, though, higher education remains what it was thousands of years ago, when students seeking knowledge and truth sat at the feet of Socrates and Plato. But in so many ways, it's changed dramatically. We think about the diversity of those students who are entering higher education today versus back hundreds of years ago, when only the sons of kings and country leaders were afforded the opportunity for higher education. We think about one of the major transitions that has occurred in the last couple of decades. What we used to be able to do in higher education was to teach students what is. And now it's our responsibility to prepare students for what is not. And that is careers and lives that dramatically change year after year. So you're preparing them for a world in which you do not know. Yeah, I'm going to tell you about my college days. Right? Over 40 years ago. There are not many of you here that are going to be able to understand what I'm talking about. But as my mother says, if you think that I'm a dinosaur, keep on breathing. You'll get there someday too. There are two thoughts that come to mind as I reflect on my college years. And one deals with technology. Now, I happen to be someone that most of my fellow students looked up to, because in my dormitory room, I had a record player, some of you may have to look that up, with an album collection that was phenomenal, and I still have it. I also had an electric typewriter, new to that modern age. So yes, I made money typing papers for my fellow students because I was pretty fast at doing so. I also had a Chevrolet, and in my Chevy I had the newest, greatest 8-track. I don't have any of the 8-tracks left. In my dormitory, there was one television in the lounge on the first floor that got, 3 stations, ABC, CBS, and NBC. There were, count them, 3 telephones in my dormitory, one on each floor. And so we all had to take turns answering the call and then going and knocking on the door of the students whose call it was intended for. There was a whopping 1 computer on campus. It was in a room about this size, and the computer took up most of the room, and the computing power was probably less than what you have on your cell phone. That was technology in my day in college. I was fortunate to have a math major as a roommate. You might recall from reading history books that you used to have to program these computers with punch cards. Having a math major as a roommate was to my good fortune, because the one and only class that I had that required use of the computer, he was able to help me get through. Beyond technology, what I think about, secondly, is that I was so very fortunate to have the opportunity of attending a private school, a private liberal arts school. In those days, private schools were considered to be the best of the best. Grew up in Ohio, attended college in Ohio. My option after a private school was to go to the Ohio State University. Open enrollment. You only decided to go there if you couldn't get anywhere else, or you went there because your parents didn't love you enough to pay more than a couple $100 a credit hour. And those times have indeed changed. Privates were the elites. Publics were open access. So let's move forward a bit. Unless you are a football player today, you better have an ACT score of 26 or higher to even be considered for enrollment at Ohio State. It's like that now at most of our large land-grant institutions. In Ohio and in Illinois, the average ACT of high school graduates is a 21. So these major land-grant research institutions are now going after hundreds of millions of dollars each and every year for research. That tends to be their focus. And to some degree, because of that, they have now, in some ways, become the elite institutions. "62% of all graduate students enrolled in Illinois independent colleges." We have more students attending graduate schools at private schools in Illinois than we do at public schools. When we think about that, one part of that might be the quality of some of our larger private institutions like Northwestern and University of Chicago. One happens to be convenience. It is much easier for a Rockford resident to attend a graduate program at Rockford College than it is to travel somewhere down the Champaign. It also reflects on the increase in non-traditional students in graduate programs who are more homebound, landlocked, than traditional students. This might shock you. The majority of minority students in the state of Illinois attend private institutions. It talks about access. We reflect now on the fact that the major land-grant institutions are less accessible than they were before. The privates are more accessible. We award more degrees than the public institutions. Now, the publics enroll more students than we do. Privates in total in Illinois enroll about 35% of the students. The difference is that they enroll more students from out of state than we do. There are more Illinois residents who attend private schools than public schools. And with only 35% of the students total within the state, we still award more degrees in the public. That talks about productivity. We provide $850 million combined among the private institutions. That is why we attract more students. That is why we attract more minorities kids. Private schools enroll more students from families who have incomes of less than $15,000 in the state than the public institutions. Another fact that might shock you, the total debt of a student coming out of a private institution is only $2,500 more than a student coming out of a public institution. Has a lot to do with the scholarships and financial aid available to individuals at private institutions. And lastly, of the monies that come from the state of Illinois to support higher education, only 8% of that pool goes to benefit students who attend private institutions. There's something called the Monetary Award Program. It provides citizens of the state monies for tuition to go to the schools of their choice. So that's how we receive funds from the state, which is only 8%. There have been a couple of significant changes that I've just mentioned briefly within higher education. One is the whole area of technology, and we'll talk more about that momentarily. The second is the whole area of perception. 40 plus years ago, perception was privates are better, avoid the publics. Now there's some prestige associated with the major land-grant institutions, more access on the private level. When I travel to Asia, or many other countries outside of Asia as well, what I'm faced with are countries that don't have a system of private higher education. Their systems are one of public education. And it's hard defining for them why they should consider a private education. Now, I tell you, I don't particularly care for the U.S. News and World Report rankings that come out each year. I think they are anywhere but factual in completeness. The actual, I'll tell you the story. Each year they send out to 2 individuals within every college and university a questionnaire. I just filled mine out. They were due last Friday. And I say that it's like 300 universities and colleges that I am charged with ranking. My opinion, but I think it's more like 200. So I know a lot about Rockford College. I know a good deal about those who are around Rockford College. I have no idea of how good 200 institutions are in the Midwest. So if that's a measure of one of their criterion, I think it's pretty flawed and ambiguous. Anyway, what you'll see here is that of the U.S. News and World Report, if you believe in it at all, you will not find a public institution listed on it until University of California, Berkeley. And why is that? Why is that? In my own personal view, it's because of the philosophy that permeates private institutions. It's devotion to the individual. It's devotion to teaching, the complete opposite of devotion to research. For those of you who happened to watch a month or so ago the President Obama's State of the Union, and even if you didn't, you recognize that there is a lot of noise about higher education within our country. You'll hear things like it costs too much, it takes too long to get a degree, that it's not open to all, and many, many other things, including there are no jobs available for graduates. The President talks about having Congress take a deep look at this. And it can bring shivers to the spine of anyone in higher education, because truly what Congress controls are funds available for student aid. So this thing called the Higher Education Act that he refers to is what controls the ability of federal dollars to flow to colleges and universities, things like Pell Grants. So unless they say you're okay as an institution, students cannot bring Pell Grants to your institution. There have been a great deal of change within our system over the last couple of decades. As states struggle in balancing their budgets, one of the things they look for is how can we continue to promote higher education but reduce the cost. And one of the ways that at least 20 states have come up with is they've had the community colleges within their states become full degree granting institutions. So community colleges in Florida, as an example, look a lot like University of Illinois. They have associate degree granting powers, they have baccalaureate degree granting powers, and they have doctoral degree granting powers. The conversation that will take place this coming year within Congress is going to be very interesting, in fact. I highlighted something there that he says is a simple criteria on how to evaluate colleges. Now, he's wrong on two different fronts. First of all, my English teacher, Mrs. Franklin from elementary school, would say that if there is one thing, it's a criterion. If there are multiple, it's criteria. But I'll forgive him for that. He probably didn't write this himself. The second thing is, how do you come up with a single measure? And what is that measure going to be? That the best education is one that is delivered with the lowest cost. Well, then we should all move towards an education which is grounded in the community college model, funded heavily by the state. Or is the best education one that is coming from an Ivy League school, extreme cost, but knowing that graduates are going to get jobs that are at very high levels? So when I think about what should be a quality education, it should be things like proficiency in your major. That's critically important. It should also be things like the ability to innovate, to analyze, to communicate. All the things that I think employers are asking for, all the things that will add to the quality of life of graduates. And I'm not sure how a simple criterion can be created that will embrace all of those factors. To give you some background, there are actually 6 accrediting bodies throughout the country that are recognized by the Department of Higher Education. You have to be accredited by one of these 6 bodies, and they are geographically bound. So here in purple in the Midwest, every school located in those states, accredited by the same agency, under the same guidelines. Our accreditation, University of Illinois, Rock Valley College, University of Chicago, Northwestern, we play by the same rules, we meet the same criteria. Talk about online. 6.7 million students taking at least one online course, increasing by 570,000 over the previous year. 32% of higher education students now take at least one online. So where is this going? I tell you that, given my dinosaur background, I'm not a big fan of online courses. Right? It doesn't work for me. I wouldn't want to be a student in an online class. I wouldn't want to be a teacher of an online class. But I cannot have my bias influence where Rockford College goes in the future. Clearly, our college and every other institution, in order to compete in the future, must gain this competency, and that's critically important. I also think that online education is a real plus for adult students. I don't think it's a real plus for undergraduate education. That might change down the road. But I think some of those things I mentioned before, the ability to communicate, to work with others, is not going to be replicated easily in an online environment. And what you see is that the number of high school graduates in our country are going to remain flat. No increase, no decrease across the country. Decrease in white high school graduates, significant increases in minority graduates. In the state of Illinois, a little worse news. Overall, there's going to be a decrease in high school graduates. This is not good news for colleges and universities that are sitting here in the Midwest. And believe me, the rest of the Midwest looks exactly the same as Illinois. Same decrease in white high school graduates, growth but not as aggressive growth in minority student graduates throughout Illinois. So here's some things that you might find interesting. You probably know already. 98% of students own a digital device. 38% cannot go 10 minutes without using one. And looking around at my fellow colleagues at Rockford College, it's more than just students, right? Annual growth rate, 18.3% of those taking online courses. And we're going to provide almost 30 million graduates by the year 2020. China and India far surpass us. It's a very interesting thought as we think about that. How many of you are 35 and over? Congratulations, you are the most educated population in the world. Of those 35 and over, the United States, as a percent of population, produces far more graduates, has produced far more college graduates. Those of you between 23 and 34, I've got some bad news for you. Of the 36 developed nations, you rank 12th. And that tells you something. It tells you that in terms of investment, in terms of higher education being a national priority, that we've dropped considerably. Now, for those of you between 23 and 34, I've got two other things to tell you. One is that you have a chance to change the statistic. It's never too late to go back. And the second thing is, because you're so much younger than the rest of us, we're envious. All of you have heard of MOOCs, massive online, open courses, aimed at large markets. You've seen them all. You've seen this publicity, so I won't go through it in great detail. But imagine a world-renowned professor putting out in front of the world a class. And in many of these classes, the professor attracts 20, 30, or 40,000 students. And the amazing thing is that they're there for free. So right now, what's the hurdle? In most cases, the MOOCs are there for information. They're not there for receiving credit through an accredited process. That's today. And then you come up with these entities which are developed for dissemination of MOOCs by Stanford and Harvard and MIT. So you combine the world leaders in education with the best professors, and now these courses are out there, again, for the most part, not for credit, but still for free. How many have seen Epic 2020? Good. I'm going to show it to you anyway. Only two of you raised your hand.
It is the best of times. It is the worst of times. In 2020, people have access to a breadth and depth of knowledge unimaginable in an earlier age. However, schools, as you know them, have ceased to exist. Academia's fortunes have waned. 20th century universities are an afterthought, a lonely remnant of a not-too-distant past. The road to 2020 began in 2009. Sal Khan starts the Khan Academy. His goal? To educate the world. Khan's low-tech conversational tutorials suggest an educational transformation that de-emphasizes classrooms, campus, and administrative infrastructures, as well as brand name instructors. Videos are hosted on YouTube and provided for free. With an instructor of one, the Khan Academy offers thousands of videos, but the real power is in its exercise and assessment system. Teachers, coaches, and mentors can set up groups of students with an exercise system that provides an infinite number of questions, coupled with hints and links to content material. Mastery is required before moving on, and a game system of energy points and badges provide instant rewards. Time on task data is measured in seconds. The system measures learning. In 2011, Mozilla announces its Open Badges project. It is a program that recognizes skills and achievements. It is open to companies, organizations, and individuals to issue, earn, and display badges across the web. Badges represent an alternative to accreditation and degrees. At the end of 2011, Sebastian Thurn, a computer science professor at Stanford, conducts an experiment by offering a free, no prerequisite, online 10-week course in the Introduction to Artificial Intelligence that parallels his on-campus course. 160,000 people register. During the course, students post questions to the class blog, where other students use the Facebook system of likes. The best questions rise to the top. Students then submit answers and are rated by their peers with an Amazon 5-star system for the most helpful answer. The best answers rise to the top. Students are teaching students. 23,000 students passed the online course, 253 with perfect scores. Professor Thurn realizes that during this session, at 160,000, he has taught more students the subject than all the rest of the computer science professors in the world. The 23,000 who passed the course represent more students than most faculty will teach in their career. Out of the 200 Stanford students attending the traditional course, only 41 were in class at the end of the course. The other 159 opted for the online asynchronous presentation. Professor Thurn gave one of his hardest examinations. The on-campus passing rate was the highest ever. 2012 would be remembered as the year everything began. January, Professor Sebastian Thurn resigns his tenured position at Stanford and launches Udacity to offer an engineering and science curriculum. March, Udacity launches 6 computer science courses, all online, all free. Udacity will contract with the very top students to represent them as an employment agent. Udacity's model is to connect world-class talent to world-class companies that happily pay a fee of 20% of their first year's salary. 50 students hired equate to $1 million of revenue. The employment value of the top 5% funds a free education for the rest of the world. Tuition is abandoned as a concept. MIT opens registration on its MIT X courses to start in the fall. The courses will use the latest interactive technology and are free. For a modest payment, a certificate will be provided. 120,000 sign up in the first month. In April, TED announces the creation of TED Ed. TED Ed will follow the compelling video format of TED and will feature the best teachers in the world paired with the best media production teams. TED Ed will be free. The federal government announces that student loans exceed $1 trillion, more than credit cards and car loans. Universities across the country announce tuition and fee increases double the rate of inflation. The elections of 2012 result in legislation that eliminates Pell Grants and terminates the student loan exemption from bankruptcy. 2013, the student loan industry collapses. Scholarship funders begin shifting their focus from providing individual student loans to funding organizations that provide free online course content. Across the country, students revolt over the costs of education and demand the elimination of a set price for content and assessment. If they take content online for free, then they demand to pay only for the assessment. In 2014, flagship state universities respond to student, parent, and legislative demands by providing transferable course credits for demonstrated ability rather than class attendance. The connection between content and assessment is broken. Apple, with its massive cash hoard, buys Amazon to form Applezon. Kindle and iBooks are merged into the largest educational content distribution system in the world. iTunes U is expanded as an educational app platform where teachers can offer their content for free. International course enrollment replaces peer-reviewed articles in tenure considerations. Applezon uses the Amazon preference matching algorithm to match personal skill levels with company skill requirements and moves to the student employment agent funding model. In response, Google buys two nonprofits, the Khan Academy and Udacity. The Khan Academy has over 10,000 video offerings for K to introductory college courses that is now combined with Udacity's 500 courses in engineering and science. To introductory college course.
I think you get the picture. If you want to check it out a little bit later, it's about 12 minutes long. Epic 2020. It's the creator will tell you it's done somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but there probably is a bit of truth there, as these giant firms, technology information firms, band together to create competition, which many might view to be as high quality. So when this first came out, it sent palpitations through most of college presidents, of course, and you kind of want to dismiss it right away. But what's happened in the meantime? 2 weeks ago, the legislature in California created a bill which said that if a student at a California public institution cannot enroll for a particular class that semester, then the university must accept for credit one of these courses, one of these MOOC courses. Last week, the state of Florida created the same bill. Whether these bills pass or not, I have no idea. But there is this thought about how do you take, in many cases, some of these world-class courses and create an opportunity for them to be a part of the higher education system. Now, back in my dinosaur days, when I came into banking, it was about the time in which, in the 70s, mid-70s, about the time in which the country was going through some change in the banking world. Prior to that time, banks could only have branches within their territories. There was regional branch banking. There wasn't national branch banking. And so the thought was that if national branch banking came into existence, all the little guys would go out of business. You would just have 3 banks nationwide. Articles, many of them, were written on that very same thing. And so I'm not sure I captured all of the banks in Rockford, probably didn't. But obviously that 40-year-old theory did not exactly come into fruition. So when I think about who I should consult to tell you a little bit about the future for higher education, I thought about calling on Nostradamus. He wasn't available. You might remember Johnny Carson's Karnak, if you are closer to my age. He wasn't available either. And so you're stuck with me. Now, I got to tell you, this is what happens when you tell your administrative assistant that for Administrative Assistance Day, as opposed to going to lunch with me, she's going to create these slides. And that's what you came up with. So, the future. I strongly think that the two ends of the spectrum will not be touched at all. I think that for the Ivy League schools, they will continue to attract students who are extremely prepared academically and from families of means. That experience, that opportunity, I don't think is going to be touched in the next 6 or 7 years by whatever happens in our world. I also think that the community colleges, providers of education at low cost, won't be affected, at least not directly, or at least because of an offset, I believe. I think two things are going to happen with the community colleges. The fact that 20 states are allowing community colleges today to offer a full range of degrees, I think that's going to spread, and it's going to become the way it works in our world. Now, Illinois might be one of the last because we're the last in several things, but it's going to happen in Illinois at some point in time. Rock Valley is going to be a provider of associate, baccalaureate, and graduate degrees. Where I think the community colleges will be hurt in the future, and they'll be hurt first, is going to be the acceptance for credit, or as opposed to credit, the acceptance for credentialing of MOOCs. Don't think about the students who attend Rock Valley who want to become teachers, doctors, or lawyers. They're going to be okay. But the students who want to be in a technical field, it's a very good application for MOOCs that I think will hurt them in the long run. They'll be okay. Community colleges, because of the expansion of degree opportunities, they'll be fine. But then there are the rest of us in the middle, the Ivy Leagues and the community colleges, the rest of us in the middle, the four-year privates and publics, what happens to us. And I think we are all going to be in this battle to win the hearts and minds of potential students in our communities. I think our value proposition going forward for us at Rockford College will look a lot like it currently does. Is what does it mean for students in terms of their experience? What are they looking for? What happens with our graduates? What are our students looking for? What happens with our graduates? And how do we serve our communities? Those are the three things. Those are the three things that are going to be up for battle for all of us. Like that phrase in the U.S. Constitution says that in order to form a more perfect union, how do we move from being good to better? The challenge for those of us in the middle is how do we take our institutions from being good to better? Along the lines of the student experience I just mentioned, the quality of our graduates, and what we might do for our community going forward. Technology. We'll start there. Every year, our institution, along with 1,000 other institutions, ask our students to complete something called the National Survey for Student Engagement. And it asks students about their experience at their institution. The fact of the matter is that we ask both our freshmen and our seniors. When we ask our freshmen about their experience in the classroom and outside of the classroom, it is better than the experience of our peers. The slide you're looking at is actually the survey of our seniors. And in all 5 categories, our students rate their experience at Rockford College higher than peers do. And that's significant because that tells me that the promise that we make to students, if they stay here and graduate, will be the promise that we keep. I think we're missing some slides. The other survey, which you're not picking up on, is called the College Learning Assessment Survey. And what it measures is where students are when they enter Rockford College and where they are when they leave Rockford College from a learning perspective. This, too, is administrated at over 1,000 institutions. And once again, the gap between where students come into Rockford College and where they leave, which measures their learning over the course of 4 years, far exceeds that of our peer group. And that's critically important as well. So we move from this idea of experience. And the surveys that we participate in tell us that over the course of the career of students throughout their learning journey at Rockford College, the experience is pretty good. And then we move to this idea of productivity. What happens to our graduates? And you all know this one. This is Jane Addams, a long time ago. Some of these others you might not know. Within the state of Illinois, there is a Teacher of the Year each year. And 2 of the last 5 years, the Teacher of the Year has been a Rockford College graduate. The first test pilot of the B-2 stealth bomber was one of our graduates. We had an individual who served in the Bell Lab teams that created fiber optics. That's a pretty good thing as well. And this gentleman was just in a couple weeks ago. He and his wife, both Rockford College graduates, both medical doctors, went on to do some pretty remarkable research in ACE inhibitors. So any of you with a cholesterol problem or a heart problem, you owe a great deal of thanks to Rockford College graduates. The companies that you see there are all regional companies, and they're all run by graduates of Rockford College. And that speaks well to not only the college, and primarily not necessarily our business program. Some of the graduates who are running companies are, in fact, even English majors who got a well-grounded education, but excel in those things called innovation and leadership that I spoke of before. And on the national level, we had a president of ABC Studios who's a Rockford College graduate who's now with CW Network. Just in my tenure here, which is including my 5th year, we've had graduates who've gone on to MIT. He should be completing his doctorate in nuclear engineering this semester. We have a graduate who's at the University of Chicago doing a PhD in chemistry. We have 3 graduates that I'm aware of that are at UIC, 2 in the medical school, and 1 doing a PhD in molecular genetics. Last year, a graduate is now at Marquette's Dental School. Another graduate from last year at Wayne State Medical School. I could give you thousands of stories about our graduates and the things that our students and our faculty do within the community. Lots of partnerships with District 205. Others are being conceived as we currently speak. Rockford Cap Challenge recognizes the $2 million that we made available to students graduating and who live in the city of Rockford. We created this past winter, I guess, an option for individuals who've been unemployed for 18 months to come to Rockford College and get a degree for free. Lots of our students are engaged throughout the world, doing great things. We have students going to Chile, we have students going to Japan this summer, but for a couple of decades we've had students go to Mississippi to work with the Habitat for Humanity in building houses, as opposed to taking their spring break and doing what most other students are doing, enjoying themselves. Internships under Jeff Farrenwald's leadership at UTC, lots of work that we're doing in collaboration with Rock Valley College, the school district, NIU, to provide interns in fields like aerospace and others as well. So 2 things. One, you're the first to know that I'm changing jobs. July 1st, I leave Rockford College and become the president of Rockford University. That's okay. Secondly, thank you. Secondly, do not tell anyone in our marketing area that I've shown you the picture of the symbol, because I'm not supposed to do that for a couple months yet. All right. Any questions that I can answer for you?
Explain to Robert, what does the switching to the university mean for the organization, for the community?
Yeah, I think as I think about it, first of all, it is Rockford College or Rockford University is a name change. It's not a change in our mission, our purpose. It's not necessarily even a change in who we are. We have always been a very complex, small university. Universities mean that we have graduate programs. So all the organizations that accredit us and review us list us as a university because of that. So it's a reflection of who we are. But more importantly than that, I think what I'd like to say is that it takes away some of the confusion in the local marketplace. Those who don't know us well are confused by the difference between Rockford Career College, Rock Valley College, and Rockford College. It also takes away some of the ambiguity internationally. In Asia, college means 2-year institution. In Europe, college means high school. Beyond that, I think what Rockford University will do for us is it opens up other possibilities as well. Much like preparing students for careers they don't know about, prepares us for evolutions that we're not sure of about as well. But that's where we are.